What is going on, ladies and gents? Welcome to Collectors Gone Digital. My name is Josh, and on today's episode, we have another two-parter for you. So our first part is going to be talking about VV's Discord, and that is going to be in light of a conversation I had with 𝗘𝗍𝗍𝗍, VV's Discord community manager. And then we're going to move our discussion over into the VeVeVerse. However, I do want to be clear for any team members watching this, our talking points about the VeVeVerse have nothing to do with the conversation with 𝗘𝗍𝗍𝗍. Not trying to get anyone in trouble here. It actually has to do with the conversation we had in the Web space afterwards on X. So we have a lot of interesting points to talk about, as well as a controversial one that I want to bring to light. So without further ado, sit back, relax, and enjoy. All right, so to provide some context on why this conversation kind of happened, it stemmed from my collectibles feedback post that he put out about a week and a half ago. And underneath, I had commented a couple points and concerns that I had. Now, all my points were focused on the VeVeVerse. I talked about how Dan's last update was back in December of last year, talking about how we're only a few weeks out to finish importing textures and stuff like that for collectibles. And then I also talked about how I felt like invites were just a complete mess. Now, fortunately, and I want to give a big shout out to 𝗘𝗍𝗍𝗍 here because he was willing to take the time to actually address some of the stuff that I said. Now, to avoid confusion, which kind of started to happen on the feed, we decided to schedule a call so that he could address some of my concerns within the realm of, what he's able to answer. Now, as I mentioned before, he couldn't really talk too much about the VeVeVerse, but he did address my concern about the VeVeVerse invites and my confusion around whether Discord mods had any involvement with the onboarding process. And that is going to be one of our talking points for today's episode. Now, one of the first questions I asked the guy was, why do you guys use Discord so much to moderate things? Why not VV's own platform? And his answer to this actually made a lot of sense to me. So he talks about how the Discord is kind of like a mini metaverse. So it's a place where people can socialize, they can rank up, earn XP, they can game, they can run events, they can do giveaways. There's lots of different activities. And so we mentioned that users who are most active in the Discord are most likely going to be active in the VeVeVerse. He also mentioned, and I'm sure a lot of users would agree with this point, that he'd rather run giveaways right now than have to wait for the infrastructure to be built out on the main app. And that's just simply because giveaways aren't possible on the main app. Now, I didn't really think about it this way, and I do think it's a really good point because I manage a Discord myself. I have somewhat of an understanding of what you can do with them. The things that are top of mind for me are all the different bots that you can implement, right? You can also go into a voice channel. You can turn on your mic, you can share your screen, you can turn on your camera, you can go down to the little game section and play different games with all the different people in the voice channel. You have certain channels dedicated to certain things, kind of like spaces in the VeVeVerse. You have certain events being ran on certain days of the week, just like events inside the VeVeVerse. There's a whole range of activities that you can participate in over on the Discord that isn't possible on the main app. It's not that it won't be possible, it's that the infrastructure hasn't been built yet. Now, another way that the Discord's being used is as a proof of concept to show new features to the team. So features can be built out, tested, and then the ones that yield positive results can then be duplicated over on the main app. He actually gave a couple examples of this. So the first one is in one of the channels, you can put !daily to earn daily XP. Now, when he said this, the first thing that came to mind was the fires on Snapchat, where if you have a streak going with somebody that you're snapping with, it shows a fire with the number of consecutive days you've snapped them. 𝗘𝗍𝗍𝗍 actually says that there's users with over 500 consecutive days of them putting this in the channel. So that right there goes to show that there's people already chasing the streak. Another example he gave is that feedback that was gathered from the Discord was also implemented in the new site that they just launched, VV 2.0. So going back to our points about how the infrastructure hasn't necessarily been built out on the main app yet, why build the infrastructure to a new feature that may not work? Test it over on Discord first, where we have an established and active audience, and if it works, we'll bring it over to the main app to introduce to the rest of our audience. Now, apparently, they are going to be making some changes to the Discord, and these changes are meant to make the Discord more collector focused. So first off, one of these changes is that the Discord is now going to reflect your VV collection. Not now, sorry, eventually. He also spoke about certain clubs that he wants to introduce, and he gave two examples. So owning something like 50 comics to get into a comic club, or 50 Disney collectibles to get into a Disney club. In his exact words, and I loved hearing this, no collector gets left behind. So whether you're a low rank or a high rank, you're always going to have the opportunity to earn rewards. Now, speaking of rewards, they are looking at users having to be KYC'd to continue participating in sweepstakes. And then last but not least, badges or your rank in the Discord is eventually going to play into MCP. So we were talking about how features from the Discord could be implemented on the main app. Well, vice versa could happen as well. In this case, MCP features could be implemented over in the Discord. So if you guys are bullish on points, preparing in the Discord could be a way to get some more. And I say could because none of this is guaranteed. Stuff could change, right? All right, so I mentioned he couldn't really talk about the VeVeVerse, but he did address my concerns around the invites and how they're being distributed. So right now, the majority of invites have gone to active Discord members, gold and silver logo holders, as well as master collectors. The reason why they're choosing active Discord members, we already talked about, because if you're active in the Mini Metaverse, you're most likely going to be active in the larger one. Gold and silver logo holders, I'm assuming just as a form of utility here. And then master collectors, the reason why here is because it allows for many more collectibles to be tested. It doesn't really make much sense to bring in somebody early who only has 12 collectibles. Now that brings us to our controversial point for today's episode, okay? And again, I want to remind anybody watching this, this has nothing to do with the conversation I had with 𝗘𝗍𝗍𝗍. This has to do with a question that I already know the answer to. And that question is, will the VeVeVerse be system dependent? I think there's a lot of confusion around this question, and I really want to bring it more into the light because I think we need somebody on the team to really make this clear to the community. If this is not clear to the community, I can tell you right now that there is going to be backlash when you open the doors to the VeVeVerse. So this point is a message directly to any team members watching this video. Now, in my opinion, the confusion around all of this kind of stems back to DCon Anaheim when Dan unveiled the VeVeVerse. And this is because at DCon Anaheim, Dan explained different phases for the VeVeVerse. And the last phase involved streaming from the cloud. That is the stage where, regardless of the system you are using, whether it's a phone, an iPad, or a high-end computer, you should be able to stream, emphasis on stream, the VeVeVerse. And this is because your system, long-term, won't require the hardware to run the VeVeVerse. It'll be streaming it. The problem here is a mix of two things. One is that people took that as the starting point for the VeVeVerse. But then two, there's also the confusion between the capabilities between Unreal Engine and Unity. So because we're starting with Unity, people think, oh, okay, that's entry level, so my computer is going to run it. That is not the case. There's a very big difference, night and day, between Unity and Unreal Engine. And yes, Unreal Engine requires way more computing power. It's a lot more higher end. And the amount of elements or collectibles that you have in your world will also determine this. So to summarize what I'm trying to say here, the long-term goal, based on what Dan said, is to stream the VeVeVerse from the cloud. So long-term, no, the VeVeVerse will not be system dependent. Short-term, however, it will be. You will need a quote-unquote beefy computer. And that's from another Discord mod, especially for Unreal Engine. But Unreal Engine, again, guys, is a later phase. The phase that we're starting off with is Unity, no streaming from the cloud. Now, a couple episodes ago, when we covered Vive Studios, we were talking about the photorealistic metahumans from Unreal Engine. I made the point that only certain people are going to be able to experience that, and that is going to be system dependent. I got DMs on Twitter, I got people commenting under the YouTube video, talking about how, oh, no, you got it wrong. My laptop's going to be able to run the VeVeVerse, Dan said. I read comments like that, and I almost feel guilty. Like I'm doing the community a disservice because I know what the real answer is. And the answer is, I'm sorry, man, you're not going to get into the VeVeVerse with an entry-level laptop. In fact, I'll walk you through exactly what's going to happen. You may be able to open the VeVeVerse and walk around with your avatar in an empty space. The moment you start dropping collectibles and placing simple shapes and buildings and default models is the moment your computer will start to slow down. And the more and more you add into that space, the more and more your computer will slow down to the point where it crashes. So to all the people who genuinely think that they're going to be able to open the VeVeVerse on their laptop and experience these large worlds, I hate to break it to you, you're not. And I do not like how this point is being brushed under the rug right now. Guys, there's beta testers who have revoked their access because their system wouldn't run it. Don't tell me that an entry-level PC will. Now, another point I want to address is LOD, or level of detail, because, and this is a common thing in gaming, when you play on a low-grade system, it's going to render half the things in the world, right? So signs might be less detailed. You might not see things as far away as somebody with a higher grade system. Graphics are going to be lower. Everything that I just mentioned there is a level of detail. So if you have a lower grade PC, you are going to experience a lower level of detail. If you have a higher grade PC, you're going to experience a higher level of detail. This does not mean that if you're on a laptop, you can open the VeVeVerse, build a giant world, and then that giant world is just going to have a lower LOD. Your laptop, your system is still going to have a cap with how much you can place in the world. Because you have a lower grade PC, you're going to be limited with how much you can build to begin with. And on top of that, you're also going to experience a lower level of detail. Having a lower level of detail doesn't just all of a sudden allow your computer to run a massive world. Now, I'm going to be honest. I questioned whether I should put this point in the video or not. And I ended up putting it in because I'm so tired of just seeing the comments where people genuinely believe they're going to be able to get in first day, when in reality, I just know that isn't the case. So to Dan, who made the comment, to any team members who are watching this video who can show Dan, the team needs to address this, because we already have the point in the community being raised about how, oh, you know, we've been waiting for the VeVeVerse for how long now? Expectations are going to be through the roof. I can tell you right now that one of the most misleading expectations that users have in the community is the point you see on screen. It needs to be addressed. It needs to be cleared up. Otherwise, and this is just based off how our community reacts to things, this is going to get blown up. There's going to be a lot of backlash from people who are pissed off, frustrated, who have been waiting for X amount of months or years, and then all of a sudden can't get in because all this time they thought that their laptop was good enough. I don't want this to be a talking point where people click the thumbs up on the video because they agree. I want this to be a talking point that people share this with the team because they don't want this to happen to other users. We cannot go from a point where we're talking about how the VeVeVerse is only weeks out last year in December to the point where those people who have been waiting eagerly to get in can't get in because of a point that could have been addressed this whole entire time. So please, please, please avoid the backlash, clear it up. Otherwise, and I hate to say it, this video is going to be a big I told you so. And I don't want that to happen. The reason why I put this point in the video is because I know team members are going to be watching it because of the points addressed with 𝗘𝗍𝗍. So I've had this on my mind for too long now. I want to get it off my chest, and I really hope somebody from the team can address it. You guys are asking for feedback, so here it is. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to conclude today's episode. I hope you enjoyed. Those were some insights shared from 𝗘𝗍𝗍 about the future of VV's Discord, as well as my thoughts and opinions around the whole system-dependent question with the VeVeVerse. But if you guys enjoy the content, make sure to like and subscribe. Comment down below what you want to see in a future episode. And as for our next, I'll catch you then.